The rain came down like fists on the roof, and inside the small mud house, Amara gripped her mother's trembling hand as if letting go would mean losing her forever. "Mama, please don't leave me," she whispered, tears mixing with the rain that leaked through the thatch above them. Abena's breath was shallow now, but her eyes still held the same warmth they always had. "My daughter, come closer." Outside, lightning tore across the sky. Inside, Chief Kofi knelt beside his sister's mat, summoned in the middle of the night by a messenger boy who had run 3 miles through the storm. The village elders stood behind him, their lanterns flickering, their faces solemn. "Kofi," Abena said, her voice barely above a breath, "swear to me, swear before these elders that you will protect my daughter as your own." Kofi bowed his head. "As long as I live," he said, "no harm will ever come to your child. I swear it before God and before these elders." Abena smiled, and in that smile was every ounce of peace a dying mother could hope for. She turned to Amara one last time. "Be kind, my love. Kindness is the richest inheritance." Then her hand went still. The wailing that followed shook the walls of the small house, but grief, as it always does, gave way to silence. And in that silence, something else was already beginning, something no one in that room could yet see. Before 7 sunrises had passed, Amara was sleeping on a bare floor. She was eating what others left behind. She was working like a servant in the house of the man who had sworn to protect her. He believed no one would ever discover what happened behind his gates. He was wrong. Before we go further, if stories like this move you, tap that subscribe button right now. You don't want to miss what happens next. 3 weeks earlier, life had been simple, but it had been full. Abena sold vegetables and hand-woven baskets at the village market, her voice warm as she haggled cheerfully with every customer. Amara sat beside her on market days, her school books tucked under her arm, dreaming aloud about the day she would stand in front of a classroom of her own. "Mama, when I become a teacher, will you come and watch me teach?" Abena laughed, tying a basket closed. "Every single day, my love, I will sit in the back and pretend I don't know you, just to hear the other mothers brag about their brilliant daughter's teacher." Amara giggled, leaning her head against her mother's shoulder. They had little, a small house, patched clothes, one worn mattress between them, but their laughter filled every gap that poverty left behind. "Mama, why do we not have much like Uncle Kofi?" Abena's smile faded only slightly. "Your uncle has land, cattle, a big house. But listen to me, Amara. Kindness is the richest inheritance a person can carry. Some people spend their whole lives collecting wealth and dying poor in spirit. Don't ever forget that." Amara didn't fully understand it then. She would understand it far too soon. The illness came suddenly, the way storms do. Calm skies one day, and then Abena collapsing beside her basket stall the next. The village healer tried roots, chants, prayers. Nothing worked. Within days, Abena was bedridden, her strength draining like water through cracked clay. "Send for my brother," she told grandmother Na, her oldest friend. "Send for Kofi." Na frowned. "Abena, that man has not visited you in 3 years." "He is still my brother," Abena said weakly, "and he is the only family Amara has left." When Kofi arrived, dressed in fine cloth that made the small house look even smaller, he knelt reluctantly beside his dying sister. "Abena," he said, forcing gentleness into his voice, "what is it you need?" "Promise me," she said, gripping his wrist with what little strength remained. "Promise me you will raise Amara as your own. Give her school. Give her love. Give her a home." Kofi glanced at the elders standing witness in the doorway. He knew refusing would destroy his reputation in the village, so he said the words that would follow him for the rest of his life. "I promise, Abena, I swear before these elders, no harm will ever come to her under my roof." 3 days later, the village buried Abena beneath a flowering tree at the edge of the farmland. She had worked her whole life. Villagers wept. Grandmother Na held Amara's trembling hand throughout the ceremony, whispering comfort. She wasn't sure she believed herself. Then Amara packed the only bag she owned and walked, hand in hand with her uncle, toward a life she believed would honor her mother's memory. Kofi's compound rose out of the earth like something from a dream. A 2-story house, with a wide veranda, glass windows, a courtyard with mango trees. Servants greeted them at the gate. "This will be your room," Mama Efua said gently, opening a door to reveal a real bed with clean sheets. "You must be exhausted, child. Rest now." Amara looked around in disbelief. "Thank you, Auntie." Her cousins peeked in curiously, offering shy smiles. For the first time since her mother's death, Amara felt something close to safety. But across the courtyard, Kofi stood watching through a window, his expression unreadable, his jaw tight. Whatever kindness the household displayed that first day was not his own. 3 days later, everything changed. "Get up," a servant said sharply, yanking the blanket off Amara's bed before dawn had even broken. Chief Kofi wants the compound swept before the sun rises. Amara blinked, confused. "But where is my room?" "This is your room now." The servant gestured to a narrow storage space behind the kitchen, barely wide enough for a mat on the floor. By midday, Amara understood. School was no longer mentioned. Her books had disappeared. Chores multiplied by the hour, sweeping, fetching water, scrubbing pots twice her size, washing clothes until her knuckles bled. Her cousins, once shy and sweet, now sneered at her from across the courtyard. "Servant girl," one of them mocked. "Did you really think you would live like us?" Amara said nothing, swallowing the lump rising in her throat. When she dropped a clay pot one evening, shattering it across the kitchen floor, Kofi's hand struck her cheek before she could even apologize. "You clumsy girl!" he roared. "You eat my food, sleep under my roof, and this is how you repay me." Amara pressed her palm against her stinging cheek, tears falling silently. That night, curled on her thin mat, she whispered into the darkness, "Mama, please come back." No one answered. Days blurred into weeks. Hunger became familiar. Amara ate scraps after the family finished their meals, sometimes nothing at all. Exhaustion weighed on her small shoulders like stones. One evening, gathering the courage that grief and desperation sometimes gift a child, she approached her uncle as he sat sipping palm wine on the veranda. "Uncle," she said softly, "may I go home?" Kofi didn't even look up. "Your home," he said coldly, "is dust beneath your mother's grave." Something inside Amara broke that night, quietly, invisibly, the way a bone cracks beneath skin that shows no bruise. Only Mama Efua showed her any mercy, sneaking bits of food to her after dark, whispering apologies she was too afraid to say out loud to her husband. "I'm sorry, child," she murmured one night, pressing a piece of bread into Amara's palm. "I'm so sorry." "Then why don't you stop him?" Amara asked, her voice trembling. Mama Efwa had no answer, only tears. If this story is stirring something in you, drop a comment below and tell us what you would do in Amara's place, because the truth is coming, and it's coming fast. Weeks later, Grandmother Na returned from visiting her sister in a neighboring village. Her first stop, as always, was Abena's grave, where she laid fresh flowers and whispered old prayers. Her second stop was Kofi's compound, to check on the girl she had promised herself she would watch over. What she found made her blood run cold. Amara flinched at the sound of footsteps. Bruises marked her arms. Her eyes, once bright with curiosity, were dull with fear. "Child," Na said gently, kneeling to meet her gaze. "What happened to you?" "Nothing, Grandmother," Amara whispered. "I fell." Na's eyes narrowed. She had seen too many falls in her long life to believe this one. She confronted Kofi directly. "Why does this child look like she is starving in a house full of plenty?" Kofi's smile was practiced, smooth. "Children must learn discipline, Na. You worry too much." But Na did not believe him, not for 1 second. That night, lying awake, she remembered something Abena had told her years ago, back when Abena's husband had first passed and fear had crept into her heart. "Na," Abena had said, pressing a small carved wooden ornament into her friend's hands. "If anything ever happens to me and Amara is ever in danger, use this. It listens. It remembers. It will speak the truth when I no longer can." Na had almost forgotten. Almost. The next morning, while Amara scrubbed pots in the yard, Na slipped into her small sleeping space and searched quietly. Beneath a loose floorboard, wrapped in a faded cloth, she found it. The ornament exactly where Abena must have hidden it before she died, exactly as she had once described. Na's hands trembled as she carried it home. That evening, alone in her hut, she activated the tiny device hidden within the carving. The recordings began to play. First came Amara's cries, then Kofi's voice, harsh and merciless. "You are nothing without me, girl. Remember that." Then something worse. Kofi speaking to a business associate, his voice dripping with greed. "Once the girl is fully under my control, her mother's land is legally mine.
Who would dare challenge
No one
me?
will question it."
Na sat frozen, the wooden ornament trembling in her palm, horror settling over her like a heavy blanket. She listened to servants whispering among themselves about beatings witnessed, about meals denied, about a little girl crying herself to sleep every night behind the kitchen. Every recording was a nail hammered into the truth. But who would believe an old woman's word against the most powerful man in the village? The following morning, the village drum echoed across the hills, summoning every soul to the gathering ground beneath the great baobab tree. Word had spread. Grandmother Na had called for justice. Chief Kofi arrived dressed in his finest robes, confidence radiating from every step. "What foolishness is this?" he announced to the crowd. "An old woman making wild accusations against me?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some villagers exchanged uneasy glances. Others, loyal to Kofi's wealth and status, scoffed openly. "She is jealous of my success," Kofi continued, raising his voice. "She always has been." Na stood tall, despite the weight pressing on her chest. "Jealousy does not put bruises on a child's arms," she said calmly. "Jealousy does not starve an orphan in a house full of food." "Lies," Kofi bellowed. "Then let the truth speak for itself," Na said. She held up the small wooden ornament and pressed the hidden switch. Kofi's own voice filled the silence of the gathering ground. Cold, calculating, cruel. Every word confirmed what the villagers had refused to imagine. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mothers pressed their hands to their mouths. Elders exchanged horrified glances. Then, trembling, one of Kofi's own servants stepped forward. "It's true," she said, voice shaking. "I have seen him strike her. I have seen him deny her food. I was too afraid to speak before." Another servant nodded in agreement. Then another. Finally, Mama Afua rose from where she sat, tears streaming down her face. "I should have stopped him," she said, voice breaking. "I was afraid. But I cannot stay silent any longer. Everything they say is true. I have seen it with my own eyes." Kofi's confident mask shattered completely. "Afua? How could you? How could you?" she shot back, years of suppressed anguish finally breaking free. "She was a child, Kofi, an innocent child who trusted you." The crowd turned against him like a tide no longer held back. Kofi searched desperately for words, but none came. For the first time in his life, his wealth, his title, his status, none of it could save him. The elders conferred quietly beneath the baobab tree, while the entire village waited in tense silence. Amara stood beside Grandmother Na, trembling, unable to believe that after everything, someone had finally seen her, finally believed her. When the elders returned, the head elder's voice rang out across the gathering ground. "Chief Kofi, you have broken a sacred promise made before this very community. You swore an oath to protect a helpless child, and instead you brought her harm for your own greed. By the authority of this council, you are stripped of your title, your position, and the lands unlawfully claimed from your sister's inheritance." Kofi opened his mouth to protest, but no words came. The chief's staff was taken from his hands. The crowd that once bowed to him now turned away in disgust. "Amara," the elder continued, kneeling gently before her, "your mother's land, her home, and her inheritance are restored to you, under the guardianship of this council until you come of age." Amara's knees nearly buckled. Grandmother Na steadied her, tears streaming freely down both their faces. "It's over, child," Na whispered. It's finally over. For the first time in months, Amara allowed herself to cry tears that did not come from pain, but from relief. Years passed like turning pages in a beloved book. Amara grew into the woman her mother always dreamed she would become. Gentle, wise, and unbreakably strong. True to her childhood dream, she became a teacher, her classroom filled with children who adored her. But she did not stop there. Using the inheritance recovered from her uncle's greed, she built something greater than a single classroom. A learning center for orphan children, a place where no child would ever again feel unwanted or unseen. Mama Afua, carrying the weight of guilt she could never fully release, volunteered there faithfully, determined to make amends in whatever small way she could. Grandmother Na visited often, watching with quiet pride as laughter filled the courtyard, where silence and fear had once lived in Amara's own childhood. Above the entrance of the learning center hung a small wooden plaque, engraved with the words Abena had spoken so many years ago. Kindness is the richest inheritance. Amara often repeated those words to her students, her voice steady with conviction, earned through unimaginable pain. Promises made in love should never be broken, she would tell them. When we keep our word, we honor not only the people we love, but also the people we become. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful stories like this one, and tell us in the comments what part moved you the most. Share it with someone who needs to hear that justice always finds its way. See you in the next story.